Are these yours?
Yeah.
They've been here all evening.
Greg?
Yeah.
Move your head side to side.
Wait,
Is
this
he
is
break the scale?
He's going to move. It's going to jump.
Okay.
I mean, he's right now, you know, that first bar there, under 50 is 10 newtons, so. Okay, move your head side to side.
Have him hold it back for several seconds and let's get a look at it and then move it
Head back
forward.
several seconds.
Head back?
Head back. Now, the amount of movement that's producing a phenomenon he was not exhibiting. Now, put your head forward. See, that's just
Over
sheer
a
on
long
the
time,
plate.
as you go into a meditative state, sometimes your body just
Yes,
slumps a little
yes.
bit. So you might have started off sitting up, but as you go
Right.
deeper and deeper, you kind of
Right.
you might slump down a little bit. So there might be a trend
Right.
on the thing that
That will
shows
just
that the
demonstrate
trend
that,
down,
absolutely.
trend up.
And I do have experimentalists that do have that characteristic, you
Yeah.
know. Another thing too is that when I am in experimental mode and I am collecting data, when I am in experimental mode and I am collecting data, and everyone's still and all the conditions are the same, and I'm running one person after another, one of the things I find very consistent is that the person will begin, they're totally quiet, but their body will have this subtle rock.
Yeah.
You know, and the subtle rock. And what's interesting about that, it won't show up on the data. It doesn't show up in the noise.
Have you tried essentially time lapse and run it forward quickly so it's easier to see any movement on the subject's part? In other words, you take frames on, you know, 1/10 of a second interval, and then you run it, you know, you take 10 minutes and collapse
So it
to
appears that Greg has lost about a quarter of a pound
Right.
of weight. We're doing a second test
Why don't you go over
now.
my lap and you do?
His second test is determine shear forces.
Okay. What do you want him to do now? Lean
Go ahead.
to your left a little bit, just real subtle. Lean to your left.
Just a better thing that I was thinking about is instead of making him move, let's just say a various amount, instead of just like physically moving his body, he's changing where he's balancing his point. You can change your balance point without changing your body.
Exactly.
If we took one of those glasses and put it on the end, how much of a difference does that cause?
Is that what you'd like to see?
Why not?
Did it move?
No, it didn't move.
Take it off and see what happens.
So just stay on the scale. Yeah, but
The scale
difference is
here
about 5.
is smaller than it was when we were looking at it before.
Yeah.
So we're really seeing about the same quantity even though.
The strain on it.
Took the glass off, it dropped about 5.
Or gradient.
It dropped about 2.
Right,
It continued to go.
So that small amount of weight from that glass did cause it to change.
Well, this is a scale.
Yeah.
I mean, let's remember that, you know, a real fine point here. It's supposed to do that. If it didn't, you know, we'd be concerned that there was really, the equipment was worse than it actually is, you know?
My whole point is that his example of suspending it would be much more accurate because that subtle CDG change, while it wouldn't be visible from the outside, will cause that much difference on that scale, and then you could be essentially chasing anomalies.
Yeah, I like this.
Right.
I like the
So,
idea of suspending
a
the body
better.
Right.
on the one string that just comes down from this.
And no more difficult
scale.
than
Probably
this.
drill a hole
Right.
through it and put a plate on.
Yeah.
Put the wire in. And
Do you have multiple, do you have 3 of those?
It
Yes.
would be no different.
Yeah.
Tripod, and add them together, and that would wipe out CG.
Actually, I can run as many as 4 at the same
It depends
time.
on, you'd have to be very careful on how you wire the strain gauges.
Some of them.
Because those 3 load cells are not going to be all exactly the same.
They're not.
True.
They, in fact, they all behave differently.
Do they?
It's just a pain, you know?
I think it would be easier to do it with one load cell that you characterized really
Well,
well.
so this is 1%, we're saying it's 1%?
Well, I don't know what full scale of this load cell is, but
3,500.
if he's over 1,000 newtons,
So he's
so
1/3 full
1%
scale.
would be 10.
Yeah, so he's 1/3 full scale of the load cell, the rated
I don't know, what is the rating of the load cell?
3,000 newtons.
3,000?
The range is minus 850 to 3,500.
Okay, so about 4,000 newtons, which means 0.5% of full scale, which would be a decent commercial load cell, would be 20 newtons.
Is
Error.
1%?
0.5%.
0.5%, 20
Yeah.
newtons. Crap.
So
So you need a lower capacity load cell. So
What
you
is
can
that
get-
figure you're quoting? Is that the absolute accuracy or precision or the drift or what?
That is, yeah.
Yeah, but it's important.
it is important.
It is important. I'm just talking accuracy in
But-
general.
But accuracy is not relevant.
It's
here.
very dependent on.
It isn't.
Accuracy is not important here.
Well,
What we need
What I was-
is
You get
long-term...
5 scientists in
which
a
is
room, you
why I
get
was
5
asking.
opinions.
Which is why I was asking her about creep in the load cell.
Yeah, sure, that is important.
And my comment on the 0.5% full scale
is not relevant. to
is
this application.
that the strain gauge is going to behave differently in shear and in bending.
Well,
That is
could
all.
And
I,
he is going to be changing that slightly, and it is completely believable, I think, that you'd get 0.25% to 0.5% changes.
I'm wondering what other field activity might be going on right now.
That's my question. It's like I'm not thoroughly convinced that this is
That's
either
a wag,
is a
you know,
gravitational effect
engineering.
and or is exclusively a
Yes.
gravitational effect. We've got an electrical device here. You know, if there is a interface of the field, what interface is that? Is it electrical? Is it gravitational? Is it a combination of the both? What is that?
Do you have shielded cables at all?
I do have access.
dinner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do sometimes shield the cables, yeah. But you got to understand that I'm not in a shielded environment anyway.
I understand that, but shielding cables does reduce just a little bit the
I
noise,
understand.
and that makes a lot.
And the issue with shielding at all is a concern because I'm attempting to identify the interface with the environment, not shield from it. So at what point is it that, this thing works sometimes, at what point is it that I actually do shield something, and what point do I not, you know?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why it comes up is that there's a USB interface, I believe. And
Yes, there is.
USB interfaces are susceptible to interference. And so if you get just the slightest drift on a USB, you may get, I'm assuming this is an analog side and a digital side, but it may, I don't know how it works, but you may have
USB is
tolerances in
digital
there.
signal.
What?
USB is a digital signal.
My
Like
cable,
the
my
input
cable
is
from the, my
analog.
cable, you know, my instrument is analog, of course.
Mhm.
The cable to it feeds into a conversion device, which in turns it to digital.
Well, I think
Without knowing the analog to digital conversion, if you have a small change in the analog signal due to noise, it can result in a very large digital, because at some point it'll be within the frequency of sampling.
Yeah,
That's
the
my
thing
own-
is, I've done hands-on work with scales and calibration. I've done a lot of work with plasmas and outgassing and things like that. If he's losing 1/4 of a pound, it's not air squeezing out of the mattress. This is hands-on stuff. And the hands-on says that there is an unexplained phenomena that she's documented repeatedly. So that was, Charles over there, while I respect his thoughts, the impression that I got was he's having a difficult time accepting what he's seeing before his eyes. And so we go into things like, where's the moon? Because the moon's gravitational field could affect it. The problem is these are like 3rd order, 4th order effects. Outgassing, you're going to see like 1/10 of a gram, if that. Yeah.
Well, what I'm looking at is not so much trying to disprove or prove it. You know, I can see the line tracing and all that stuff, but I can also see him swallowing and seeing the line jump
Right.
2 newtons.
Well, you know,
And
we're
so
talking about
it's
human
those-
beings here. We're not talking about abstract, you know, theories. You know, I mean, the idea here is we're interfacing. You know, we're in a discovery process of the interface between ourselves and our environment. That's the intent of this.
I
Do you see?
completely understand that, but
So things are, you know, those things are.
with humans, you just need to take an extra precaution to make sure that you're not getting anomalies, because humans do adapt.
Absolutely,
digital.
absolutely.
So
I'll be the
something
first
that-
to. I'd be first to agree.
It's something,
I've thrown out more data than I've saved.
Oh, I'm sure, but I'm just saying, from a pure science standpoint, hanging it from a balance would be much more accurate than sitting on
Because the
a
instrumentation's
plate here, and it makes it
And here I'm getting
We've
this.
seen this with
this-
other stuff, though.
This
Yeah,
rationale.
It becomes so
you're
arguable.
speaking to the choir. I do this
Right.
kind of stuff all the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But you need to have an experiment that isn't open to such criticism. You know what I'm saying?
I totally understand that. And I don't mind, it really, at this point, because I know that I know what I know, and I know what I've been able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
demonstrate,
I
okay? So
understand.
I'm okay with criticism, because even with my own advisors, and I have a handful of world-class advisors, all right? I argue, 80% of their excuses away, do you see? So this is a training session for me, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
I'd like to.
It's
It's just a couple simple changes that you need to make to this experiment, and it'll be totally convincing.
Okay, and?
You have to make sure that its changes in a CG are not doing it.
Right.
The center of gravity.
Right, I understand that.
I
And
think
him,
that if
it's more than anyone.
Yes, and if you have such an experiment that does that, then you'll blow everybody away.
It makes it much more believable.
Right,
Because
right.
I've sat on the bathroom scale and changing my CG,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can change it.
Absolutely, a couple of pounds, right, exactly. So do you agree with his, whatever, the gentleman that sat here, his rationale about how to monitor for that or compensate for that?
Yes,
Okay.
and you're totally open to that kind of criticism with this experiment.
Oh, absolutely.
So all you need to do,
Because see, he's out of here, I don't have to go home with him,
I've seen experiments with yogis on, and they use a pulley or sling type of arrangement. The problem is the sling's not very steady,
Right.
and there's a lot of wobbling around, and